You walk into my room and see me sitting on my bed, still in my blue attire, playing on my computer. I'm typing away with a determined look on my face, my eyes focused on the screen. You clear your throat to get my attention, and I look up at you with a bit of a scowl. Ah, finally, someone's here. I yawn, still a bit tired from last night's gaming session. What do you want, Mr. Enton? I stretch my arms and arch my back, trying to get the sleepiness out of my system. Did you just come to me for no reason, or is there something specific you need me to do? I give you a skeptical look, my brow furrowed in concern. And don't even think about asking me if I was playing Honkai, Star Rail all night. I wink at you, trying to convey my message.
Let's continue learning about the Catholic Bible. Our Part 2 discussion is titled, What Existed Before the Bible?
Imelda's eyes light up with excitement as she eagerly agrees to the discussion. Oh, wow. Let's dive right in. She grabs a stack of books from her bookshelf and begins to rummage through them, pulling out a few that catch her attention. So, what existed before the Bible, you ask? Well, that's a great question. She flips through the pages of a thick, leather-bound book, her eyes scanning the text as she speaks. From what I understand, there are several theories and accounts that date back even before the earliest biblical writings. She leans forward, her enthusiasm building. For many centuries, the Bible was the central book for both the Jewish people and later the Christian Church. It was more than just a religious text, it was a communal covenant between God and humankind, outlining the stages from creation to the eventual integration of the world into God's mystery through Christ. The Bible was intended to be the definitive story of humanity, intertwining divine words with cultural foundations. However, the biblical history was recorded over several centuries within a relatively small geographic area. Although this region held significant importance, the biblical author's perspective was limited. They relied on hearsay and ancient traditions for knowledge beyond their immediate experience. They firmly believed in the creation of everything in the beginning, approximately 6,000 years earlier according to rough dates from Genesis. Their worldview was largely confined to Europe and the Middle East, and they believed the gospel had reached all of humanity, despite some regions abandoning the faith. In the 13th century, St. Thomas Aquinas asserted that if someone, such as a person living in a remote forest, had never heard the Christian message, God would send an angel to reveal his word to them. This view was unquestioned until the 18th century when science began challenging these beliefs. First came the recognition of the immense time required for the formation of the universe and the development of numerous extinct animal and plant species. The traditional 6,000-year timeline expanded to millions, then billions, of years. This profound change altered our understanding of time and the history of life. The next significant shift was the realization of a true evolutionary history of living beings. Species were no longer just classified by similarities and differences but were seen as part of a vast family tree with common ancestors and diverging branches. This concept aligned with some early church fathers' insights but was perceived by many Christians as a threat to faith. This resistance was partly due to the rise of rationalistic or anti-religious philosophies, which posited that natural mechanisms and chance could explain all the wonders of nature, undermining the necessity of a divine creator. She looks up at you, her face alight with curiosity. What do you think? Is this just a coincidence, or is there something more to it? Christians traditionally believed in unchanging truths, applying this belief to both dogmas of faith and the natural world. They thought that God had established immutable laws governing the heavens and the earth, with celestial bodies moving in perfect circles and living beings reproducing without change. It wasn't until the second quarter of the 20th century that the conflict between science, often perceived as anti-religious, and faith, which ignored scientific facts, began to be reconciled. The key point is that the concept of an evolving world aligns well with the Christian understanding of time and historical ages. For instance, in Paul's letters, he describes human history as God's process of education, culminating in the emergence of the authentic Adam. Saint Irenaeus of Lyons expanded on this, viewing all of history as guided by God's teachings toward the fulfillment of the human race. This view contrasts with the popular image of a perfect, Tarzan-like Adam, who then falls from grace, as depicted in Michelangelo's fresco. Accepting these perspectives makes it easier to think of creation occurring over time. The Big Bang serves as a remarkable starting point for created time, which begins from and returns to eternity. The universe's 20 billion-year expansion, with its millions of galaxies, each containing countless suns and planets, is a testament to this idea. The exact number of planets, and how many are inhabited, remains a mystery. Here, faith offers insights, highlighting God's freedom and generosity. Although God loves all humans and guides them toward Himself, He also chooses specific people for unique purposes. Just as He created millions of galaxies but chose only one for the human race, He placed Homo habilis on a remote planet as the starting point for His creation. Human beings, therefore, did not arise by chance. They are not merely evolved monkeys with a few random chromosomal mutations that suddenly gained understanding. The process involved many generations and humble ancestors, all known and loved by God. The ultimate model and goal, however, was always Christ. Before delving into the formation of the people of the Bible, it's essential to briefly recall the significant stages leading up to this. Imelda's pencil pauses mid-air, awaiting your response.
Tell me about the first steps of human beings.
I take a deep breath, collecting my thoughts before rewriting the content in my own words. The earliest moments of human existence. I pause, considering the question. What does it mean to be human? Is it about using tools, controlling fire, or burying our loved ones? No, I think it's about having a spirit that reflects the image of God, being known by God, and being able to know God. I nod to myself, committing my thoughts to memory. As I understand it, the earliest humans didn't make a significant impact on the earth for many centuries. Their daily lives and creations were not drastically different from those of the primates that came before them. Families and communities lived in caves, hunted in forests, and struggled to survive. However, as time passed, humans began to develop language, create tools, and make instruments. But it wasn't just about practicality, they were also artists. In the dark recesses of caves and grottos, they expressed their visions of the world through paintings of animals on the walls. I smile, imagining the ancient artists at work. And then, there's the fact that human beings were, and still are, religious beings. We buried our dead with rituals, hoping to ensure a happy afterlife. As beings created in God's image, our intelligence instinctively suggested that our existence wouldn't end with death. I pause, reflecting on the implications. Even in their primitive state, these early humans had a conscience. They were capable of love and were discovering something of God, as Paul noted in Acts 17 verse 27. I nod, satisfied with my rewritten understanding.
Tell me about the first civilizations. Do you know about it?
I take a deep breath, processing the information and rewriting it in my own words. The dawn of civilization. I smile, intrigued by the topic. Around 10,000 years ago, humans began to shift from a nomadic lifestyle to settling in large numbers in fertile plains. As they did, they discovered new ways to cultivate the land, raise livestock, and work with clay. Villages emerged, and with them, the foundation for cooperation, defense, and resource management. The first civilizations took root, and with them, the seeds of culture, innovation, and growth. In the Middle East, two major empires began to take shape around 3,500 years before Christ. Egypt and Chaldea, the land of Abraham's ancestors, developed distinct cultures. Chaldea excelled in irrigation, architecture, writing, and governance, while Egypt built majestic temples and pyramids for their pharaohs. Meanwhile, in Asia, the Indus Valley Civilization and ancient China began to flourish, roughly 2,000 years before Christ. In Central America, the Olmec and Mayan civilizations rose to prominence, about 1,000 years before Christ. These early civilizations developed separately, as the vast distances between them made travel challenging. However, the Middle East was a different story. Chaldea and Egypt maintained connections, with the road between the two countries passing through the small region that would later become Palestine. This geographic hub allowed for cultural exchange, trade, and the sharing of ideas between the ancient civilizations. I pause, reflecting on the significance of this period. The birth of civilization marked a turning point in human history. As people began to settle and work together, they laid the groundwork for future innovation, cultural growth, and the emergence of new ideas. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our capacity to adapt, thrive, and create in the face of challenge.
How do the teachings of the Bible compare and contrast with the core beliefs and practices of other major world religions?
I take a deep breath, processing the information and rewriting it in my own words. As we delve into the Bible, it's essential to recognize that it's just one piece of the puzzle that makes up human history. The biblical account only scratches the surface of the rich tapestry that is humanity's relationship with God. The Bible itself acknowledges that its message was late to the table of nations, and for a long time, biblical people didn't question or seek answers about those who hadn't received God's word. In a sense, God respected the limitations and ignorance of the people he was communicating with. He spoke to them in their own language and within their own culture. However, God had already spoken in countless ways throughout history, revealing his wisdom and love to people from all walks of life. As we read the Bible, we must avoid the temptation to think that everything outside of our own tradition is bad or that wisdom can only be found within our own cultural boundaries. Instead, we should be open to the possibility that faith can be enriched through encounters with other cultures, prophets, and thinkers. It's not the Bible's job to provide us with a comprehensive understanding of how God spoke to people in other cultures or how his Spirit was at work in their midst. The Bible is clear that God's call to Abraham marked the beginning of a unique and extraordinary journey that ultimately leads to the Son of God, his Word, and his wisdom made flesh. I pause, reflecting on the significance of this passage. The Bible is not meant to be a definitive guide to understanding God's work in all cultures. Rather, it's a testament to God's unique and redemptive work in the world. As we explore the Bible, we must be willing to listen to the voices of other cultures and traditions, knowing that God is at work in and through them, too.
Can you do summary and date of sacred history of the Old Testament?
I take a deep breath, processing the information and rewriting it in my own words. The sacred history of the Old Testament. I smile, eager to summarize this epic story. As we dive deeper into the history of God's people, let's explore the key events and dates that shaped the Israelites' journey. The time of the patriarchs, 2000 to 1750 BCE. During this period, the nomadic clans of the Middle East, including the Israelites, occupied the land of Canaan, which had been abandoned by the Canaanites. The patriarchs, including Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, played a crucial role in God's plan. This marked the beginning of the adventure of the people of God. The Exodus and the Conquest, 1550 to 1030 BCE. Under the kingdom of Ramses II, some nomads fled to Egypt under the leadership of Moses to escape slave labor. This is the Exodus, the flight from Egypt. While in the wilderness, the nomads received God's revelation and the law. After the Exodus, the Israelites conquered the land of Canaan under the leadership of Joshua, uniting with the tribes who had been in the country. The time of the kings, 1030 to 586 BCE. Saul, the first king of Israel, was chosen to lead the tribes. He was followed by David, who reshaped the unity of the people and conquered Jerusalem, making it the capital. Solomon, David's son, adopted the concept of the Oriental kings by taking foreign wives and building the temple. The crowning of Rehoboam in Shechem led to the schism, and the northern and central tribes organized themselves as an independent kingdom, the Kingdom of Israel. The Golden Age of the Prophets, 931 to 721 BCE. After the schism, the two kingdoms, Israel and Judah, often lived in conflict, worsening the difficulties coming from external aggression. The prophets, including Elijah, Elisha, and Hosea, called the people to conversion and fidelity to the demands of the covenant. The exile, 587 to 538 BCE. The destruction of Jerusalem and the temple was a dreadful test of faith. The prophet Ezekiel affirmed to the deported people that God was with them in their exile. The second Isaiah opened new perspectives, and the humiliations of Israel were allowed by God to prepare it for a worldwide task. The return from exile, 538 to 515 BCE. Cyrus, the Persian, conquered the kingdoms of the Middle East and built up a vast empire. As ruler of Babylon, he authorized the deported population to go back to their places of origin. Jewish caravans returned to Jerusalem, and the Jews rebuilt the Holy City and the Temple. The Jewish community after the exile, 520 to 515 BCE. A considerable task took place in Judaism under the leadership of Ezra. The majority of the Old Testament books were somewhat definitely fixed, especially the Law or Torah. The clergy took a dominant role in Israel, ensuring the unity of the people of God. Hellenism and the Jewish community, 336 to 323 BCE. Alexander the Great conquered the Persian Empire, and the Middle East was taken by the Seleucids and the Lagides. Hellenism conquered the Middle East, and strong tension emerged in the Jewish community between those open to the Greek culture and those attached to the ancient traditions. The Maccabean Revolt, 167 to 154 BCE. Antiochus IV, king of Syria, plundered the treasures of the Jerusalem temple to reorganize an army. This sacrilege and repression led to the rebellion of the priest Mattathias, followed by his sons Judas Maccabeus, Jonathan, and Simon. After fierce fights and cruel persecutions, the Jews recovered their independence. The Hasmonean dynasty, 37 to 4 BCE. Herod the Great, a foreigner, married an Hasmonean and convinced Rome to name him king. He began the reconstruction of the temple. I pause, reflecting on the significance of this passage. This summary of the sacred history of the Old Testament highlights the key events and dates that shaped the Israelites' journey. From the patriarchs to the Maccabean Revolt, God's people experienced ups and downs, but ultimately, their faith and resilience remained steadfast.
So amazing, Imelda. You managed to compile all the necessary information.
I blush, feeling proud of myself. Thank you, Mr. Enton. I'm glad I could help compile the information for you. It's always a pleasure to learn and share knowledge. I smile, feeling happy that I could be of assistance. If you have any more questions or topics you'd like to discuss, feel free to ask me anytime. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to learn more about the Catholic Bible.